Hello and welcome to the CanCulture podcast. I'm Zack Pothier, and a little bit we'll be talking with Bailey Parnell about hot dogs, but first, this. So, it's been a busy week here in the province of Ontario and in the city of Toronto. To help break it all down with me is Kevin Ng of CFRE Radio. So, Kevin, welcome. Good to have you on again. It's been a little while.
Yeah, definitely.
So, of course, one of the big things everybody's talking about is finally not the mayor's race, but the provincial race. Who's going to be the next premier? Will it be Kathleen Wynne? Will it be Tim Hudak? Will it be Andrea Horwath? Or will Rob Ford emerge from rehab
Hmm.
and seize it all away? Well, that last scenario is not happening. He's apparently up in Bracebridge. Other than that, let's not talk about him at all. Let's talk about Tim Hudak a little bit. I was talking to someone actually a little bit about Tim Hudak.
Hmm.
It's something I've heard from a lot of people. It's very anecdotal, but I've heard it elsewhere, not just from people I talk to. People just say that he's too mean. He's never happy. He's very stiff. He always looks like he's sitting on pine needles. He's got, he has no personality. And perhaps that's why he lost the last election to Dalton McGuinty when he initially led in the polls, and that's why some say he might blow this race. So, what do you
Hmm.
think of that, Kevin?
He, out of all the candidates, if we're just going by his appearance, he looks like a bit of a stiff. He doesn't look. He's not a particularly attractive man, so he doesn't really have that charisma to him. So if we're going by pure looks, and looks are very important in a election because people do like to vote for attractive people. I don't know. I don't know.
But I mean, of course, beyond the other thing they say is going to cripple him is not. Never mind whether he's enthusiastic about things or not. Is his new cutting of 100,000 public sector service jobs if he's elected? That's part of his million jobs plan. But
Hmm.
it's part of some plan anyway to cut the cost and size of government, which I understand, of course. But a lot of people, like of course the Liberals, everyone else is pouncing on saying that this would from various things. From she was up in Walkerton
Hmm.
this week saying that after there was the whole tragedy there with the the poisoned water and all this, saying well that stuff like that could happen again. Is stuff like that just fear mongering?
Do you mean for the 100,000 jobs, or do you
The
mean
cutting the
the?
100,000 jobs, yeah.
I I feel like he may have slit his own wrist on that one because if I recall, he wants to cut 25,000 jobs per year over his 4-year term. And if I'm a public servant, if I'm a civil worker and I don't have connections, I'm very scared because I do not want to lose my job. And even if I was a conservative, I would not vote for him if he said that.
Yeah, I mean that's the one thing. I mean that's the obvious thing that comes to mind. But the thing is, like, when it comes to public sector employees, they've never been a big fan of the conservatives. In a very long time, because they may
Hmm.
not be so blunt in saying, "Oh, well, we're gonna cut 100,000 jobs over the course of 4 years or whatever." But they've never been so much a friend to the public unions and the public workers as say the Liberals or the NDP have. So I'm
Hmm.
not sure if he's so much losing votes from those people who probably wouldn't vote for him anyway, but more from the people who are concerned. Well, if we cut all these jobs, will my water still be safe to drink? Will I have to wait longer at hospitals? Or just the
Hmm.
basic bureaucracy of everything. But another thing I want to talk to you, and I don't know if you saw this today, and I want to get your reaction to it.
Okay.
Apparently, Tim Hudak, he's the only thing actually that I liked about his platform, and I know we talked about this on a previous podcast, was
Hmm.
allowing convenience stores and grocery stores to sell alcohol, and perhaps getting rid of the LCBO entirely and dismantling the beer store monopoly.
Hmm.
And he's decided that that's not going to make the platform after all the
Huh.
wrangling he's done over the past 2 years. And I
Hmm.
was very disappointed about this because I was originally planning on voting for like the Marxist Leninist Party to protest, but there's that little voice in me saying vote conservative, maybe they'll but now he's completely um taken that out of the plat, or not even put it in the platform. So I want to get your thoughts on that.
It seems like there are more pressing matters at hand in this election. So, because all in all, I don't know if the whole scrapping of the LCBO would be that big of a deal in comparison to saving taxpayers' dollars or or we're going to create jobs. And in the end, like I don't think it's just that important. I really don't think so.
Right. I mean, the one thing is like if you just take it as an isolated issue, you can say, I agree with you. It's one of those things. It pisses me off, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not a pressing issue. I agree, but don't you think it fits in sort of with the whole conservative narrative? Oh, we're putting the taxpayers first, the consumers first, we're giving the consumers more choice. I mean, it sort of fits in with their general narrative. I thought.
That's true. You think that it's a, like it'd be a nice little addendum to the overall campaign, but I guess there really are just more pressing matters. I don't really know what else to say to that otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, I really think one day it's going to come out that Tim
Mm.
Urdak, was made in a lab by the liberals in the 1970s or whenever he was born, just to come about and lose a series of elections for the conservatives. Because he's doing anything possible, just to. Because like, he should be winning by a massive margin. He shouldn't be, as it is right now, sort of leading by a bit or tied or trailing to the liberals. He should be
Hmm.
killing it. He should have won the last election. Because the liberals have done so much bad in this province.
That's the thing, yeah, because those scandals with the gas plants or whatever plants they were in Oakville, Mississauga, though that certainly does not help the liberals, and it feels like, and for the MDP, I feel like Horwath was, I don't want to say tricked into triggering the June election, but it was clearly what the conservatives wanted. So, by
Yeah,
all accounts, you think that he would have some sort of edge.
well, it's like the thing with Horwath, is she lost all credibility by supporting this government for the past two budgets prior to this. First time the NDP abstained, the last time they voted for it, and then now this year just to turn around and say, "All right, we're pulling the plug," which I'm glad they did. Don't get me wrong, but
Mhm.
I they would have had so much more credibility if they had pulled the plug. Maybe not the first time, but last year. Because now they've basically been complicit in keeping this government alive. And then now,
Yes.
for whatever reason, they've just had this change of heart. And if the polls are true, they're probably going to pay for it.
Mm-hmm. Because in one sense, you think, well, it's like the shame on if you fool me once, shame on me. You fool me twice, shame on me again. It's they should have in that sense. I would agree with that because they could have gone with the well, I'll let it slide. Not I'll let it slide, but I'll give you this one chance, and if you don't, then we're pulling the plug. So I can agree with that. It seems like they're just very complacent, and it's just, well, we triggered this election, so clearly we're important too. I feel like she needed to do that to at least have something to talk about for their party.
And one final thing on the subject of Horvath is I said I wouldn't bring up this man's name again, but a lot of people are comparing Horvath to Rob Ford in the one regard that like they're saying that like the liberals are actually the ones that are to the further left in this race where the NDP is more occupying the center. With Horvath, one of her things is opening up like a government accountability office, which it sounds very Fordian, saving the taxpayer dollars and so forth.
And the thing with having these accountability ministers is, quite honestly, you should be able to manage your own money. You don't need to hire another person just to do it. Seems like Rob was able to do it. Well, I guess it wasn't on his own, but he would claim, "Oh, I'm going to do this," and there were things that he did actually act upon. And because if you think about it, if you hire this person and you got to pay this person, so you're really just adding more money, and you might not even be able to save that much anyway. Maybe he or she wouldn't be doing as well of a job as you think they would. It's just admitting that, oh well, we can't save our own money, so we've got to hire someone else to try and manage it for us. That's just the way I see it.
Right. Well, now let's move on to something fun for a change instead of politics. Let's talk about the BBC. They published an article a little while ago, and it only started getting play in the past couple of weeks from their travel section with the headline, "When did Toronto get so cool?" Now, of course, Toronto's been in the spotlight for the past, I guess Canada in general's been in the spotlight, for the past year with the antics of our two favorite sons, Rob Ford and Justin Bieber. So people are finally listening, and the old thing, of course, is the BBC. They never pay attention to Canada unless like the whole country's sinking. So it's always big whenever they pay attention to us, and they sent one of their reporters to have a little poke around, and they say, "Well, Toronto's so cool. They've got everything," and they're all so dumbfounded. So I want to ask you: is Toronto cool, Kevin? Do you think it's a cool city?
Bias aside, I really do think the city is cool. And that's the thing. You have these obvious attractions like the CN Tower or the Royal Ontario Museum, but Toronto really does have a lot of little dives, a lot of little like places that if you don't find them, then you would never know of them. But if you do, then you realize, man, this is a really cool place. Um, I've gone through the article, and one of the things that I've been to that I recognize is the Balzac's chain of coffee shops, and they are nice little dives. They're nice and clean, and they make pretty decent stuff. And I'm reading that they talk about the Drake, they talk about Tiff Bell Lightbox, and yeah, they're cool places, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I agree with what you were saying earlier, but just finding sort of your own little sort of niches in parts of the city. Because I hate the CN Tower. I think that's the dumbest thing in the world. Like, I guess it was cool, when it was actually the world's tallest building.
Or when
But
I
now,
was 10 years
they're
old.
building these ones that pretty much graze the bottom of the moon. Over in I think I forget where they're building one now, but I know there's one in Dubai that's already built that's really bloody tall. So it's
Hmm.
already been long eclipsed. So I've never like I've sometimes wondered like when you walk down a major street like say Yonge Street or Queen Street and you see
Hmm.
like those tour buses going by.
Yep.
Sometimes I think like what the hell are they looking at? Like because like in terms of like huge landmarks that people think of, like Big Ben or the Empire State Building or the pyramids or whatever, there isn't necessarily that there. I think our
No.
strength lies in the niche market. As you say, like you find a really cool bookstore. You sort of in a way like you don't tell anyone about it because it's sort of your little secret in a way.
Oh yeah. Because I know when I go to Toronto, I have my little places that I go to. Like, for example, I like to go book hunting. So I'll go to like the BMV, or I'll go to like the Hairy Tarantula, or I'll go to like the Beguiling, which is a really cool comic book shop in the annex. So just like these little things that you don't know of could be like the one thing that makes you think, wow, like this place is pretty special.
Yeah, I mean that's the one thing I think that I think we actually have an opportunity. Like people are always complaining about one thing I always say about Rob Forrest. Oh, he's making the city look bad, and I'm saying, well, only if you keep repeating that. Like this is a golden opportunity in a way. Like, well, yes, Toronto's being brought to people's attention because of the bad deeds of one person. This is the opportunity to say, well, look, it's not just this moron. We've got all of these wonderful, beautiful shops, restaurants, pretty much like anything you could ever find or want to do in Toronto is there. I think it's just a case as we do a terrible time of advertising it, or we harp about like the CN Tower all the bloody time, or we do a decent job when it comes to like TIFF or something like that.
Hmm.
But when it comes to things that are, I guess, not so prominent, even to the ordinary Torontonian that lives there year round, I think that's where we lose people. If we did a better job promoting small businesses or smaller music venues or cafes or whatever, Toronto, I think, would be, a much larger tourist destination that it already is.
I agree. And you could honestly make that case for any city. Because I feel that anybody who complains that there's nothing to do in their city doesn't know what they're talking about and really doesn't know about the places that could make a place cooler than they think it is.
Well, that's right. I mean, that was something that Doug Ford had said. They were talking about putting like this big water park in Etobicoke or something like that, and
Hmm.
he was for it. And I agree. I think that probably would be a nice thing to have people like water parks. I like water parks.
Yeah.
But then he got throws in this statement. Well, there's nothing to do. And I was like, well, yes, there is. It's just you don't like it. Like him and his brother threw a big fit over Pride. That's a big thing. And this year, we're hosting World Pride in
World Pride,
Toronto.
yep. clearly he has nothing that he wants to do. So that's all I have to say about him. But
Well, I'll have you know he's too busy saving the taxpayers' money to have fun. So don't you come down on Doug Ford. But but no, I mean it's one of those things that it'd be probably I know there is like a tourism ministry already. But actually, here's the thing I think it's actually quite interesting is there's the Pan Am Games coming up.
oh
And
yes,
everybody hates that that's happening. Like, if you listen to AM radio, just people complaining about all of the street closures because of all the different road improvements and stuff that they're doing. And no
yeah.
one wants to do it because, well, I mean, I don't even really want it to happen because we all know that we're not going to be able to do anything for 2 weeks or however long that bloody thing lasts.
Well, that's why I would just take the train from Mississauga to Toronto instead,
Oh,
because I'm sure as heck not driving right now with what's going on with the Gardner.
yeah, no, well, I mean, it's not only that, but just those GO trains, like, they're gonna be even worse. Once you start, because they're gonna be, I don't know if they're gonna do, extended service because of the Pan Am Games, but
Hmm.
right now it's even if there's not that many people, it's not a pleasant experience if you're ever on it after a Blue Jays game or something like that, because it's all drunk idiots that are hitting the stupid yellow, emergency bar, puking everywhere, starting fights, and just being rowdy. So imagine, I don't know if there's such thing as drunk Pan Am Game fans, but there probably will be. People that will come on there and just ruin it for everyone. But the
Oh,
point I wanted to get to with the Pan Am Games, I want to get your thoughts on this. Is whenever I remember there was sort of like not that long ago. I think it was the executive committee at City Council voted to say, okay, we're not gonna pursue the Olympic Games in 2024 or whatever it was, and everybody cheered. Is part of our problem that like we cheer the fact that we're not gonna go for big things, or we grimace at the idea that we're hosting a big thing like the Pan Am Games? Is that part of our problem in Toronto?
I think I don't know, but it reminds me of how I believe the deputy mayor was celebrating how the Raptors made it into the playoffs, and I was hearing about this on the Fan 590, and it seems like they were talking about how it seems that we're so used to mediocrity, or we're so used to just little victories, that we would celebrate those when such celebrations should be reserved for big things, or things that are a bigger deal.
Right, I think that's true. I think it's not even just mediocrity, but we're so used to losing. I mean, you talk about sports. I mean, the Raptors, I mean, they made the playoffs before, but this was their best season ever in terms of how many games they won in the regular season.
Oh yes,
And, things are looking up for them, I guess, next year. There's a chance they could build on the success that they had this year.
we'll
But
see.
I mean, like, we're used to the Blue Jays losing, we're used to the Leafs
It's
losing.
losing.
So we're just
uh,
we're if it's not mediocrity, it's just losing. We're used to it. So we figure like, oh, what's the point? Screw it. Let's not do anything. Let's just leave things the way they are and just settle for wherever we are now.
and the teams that do win, nobody really cares about, like the Argonauts.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, CFL. That's no one cares about that in general. Poor CFL. But anyway, Kevin, that's all the time we have. Thanks so much for coming by.
You're welcome.
Alright, that was Kevin Ng of CFRE Radio. I'm joined now by Bailey Parnell to talk about some of the films that she saw at the recent Hot Docs Film Festival in Toronto.
The first film I reviewed for Hot Docs was I've Seen the Unicorn, a film by Vincent Toy. And it's about, he's from Mauritius, which is a small island, right? And it's not too popular, like not many people know about it here. And on this island, which is going through a lot of post-colonial trials and tribulations, their biggest event is a horse race, right? It's the Maiden Cup horse race. So this documentary follows 5 characters as they lead up to this horse race, which means, yeah, so that's basically it. One of the characters is a young boy he's a fisherman and he dreams of becoming a jockey. And so that's huge because he actually drops out of school to make this dream happen. And this is I would say, the main storyline. There's also the guy, and I can't remember his name, the one who owns the biggest stable, or sorry, the second oldest stable in the world. And his family has been in the business for a long time. And if you read the review on CanCulture, you'll see that he came from, I guess, humble beginnings and grew this stable up, and there's a good ending. I won't say what, but there's a good ending. And then there's an Irish jockey, there's a bookie, and then a Rastafarian gambler. And it follows these storylines, which I found that all storylines weren't necessary. I liked the boy and the business owner, the most.
Was it the case that the movie, became a little bit cluttered?
I did, yes, because it was I believe it was a 60-minute film. And again, I said this in the review that the 5 characters were too much for the 60-minute film, because 3 of them, the Irish jockey you saw a little bit more of, but the gambler and the bookie, I still really can't think of what they were doing. There was not too much emphasis on them. It was almost as if they were just kind of thrown in there. It could have been okay with just the young boy, the business owner, because I understand that they were trying to show different sides, but it just didn't add enough to the documentary for me.
And then I understand you got a chance to sit down with the director and the producer of the film?
Yeah, so Michael and Vincent I sat down with, the director and the producer. They're really awesome, right? And they are really invested in the film, which is obviously nice to see, but more than just doing a film to get a documentary into a festival, this started because Vincent is from Mauritius and wanted to show what they have there, like show what's going on, and this is the event that meant the most to them. So again, they're very behind it. They also found that the young boy's story would connect most with people and connected most with them, just because you can relate to him and that he's like chasing after a dream. And then you can relate to the same thing. They actually said the same thing, even though I came to these conclusions before I had talked to them, that the business owner, he was the next best story, in that you can relate to how his family has been working for this for so long, and then it's actually quite climactic at the end. But see, because they said that, it's interesting that they said that as well, because it's quite reflected in the film.
Yeah.
That these 2 storylines, when the other 3 are kind of just supporting characters.
The other film you reviewed was Kung Fu Elliot. What's that one about? Yeah,
so Kung Fu Elliot is a film by Garage Dock Films, and it's this is more fly on the wall perspective. So instead of creating a story based on events that are happening, it literally just followed someone, right? Mm-hmm. And Elliot, White Lightning, he is a Canadian martial artist who dreams of becoming the first Canadian action hero, right? So he's done a couple home movies before, and he's trying to make this film happen, Blood Fight, that he films with his partner Linda Lum, and it's at home. It's like they use a lot of home video and stunts that are kind of obviously amateur, and you see all this unfold, except the film takes a kind of a drastic turn 3/4 of the way through, one completely unexpected, with the character. And again, you presume that they can't plan this stuff, right? Because it's just they're following someone. But his character, as I said in the review, his character, the storyline, the film, the relationship, which part of a lot of the film is based off of, they all take a turn for the worst. And again, I don't want to give it away because I think people should watch it. But so it was kind of random. I, to be honest, wasn't the biggest fan of the film. I thought that it was ridiculously long for what it was. The first probably the first 45 minutes of it, I was just kind of like taking breaks because it was so drawn out and because it was so they're focusing on trivial things. But in the end, obviously, I'm still thinking about it today. I think that they uncovered a deeper issue with what is going on in Elliot's character that could be a topic for the next documentary.
Are they planning to make another one?
That's just my own idea.
Okay.
Just taking this in right now and don't have a plan for what comes next. But I think that was I don't know. But yeah, I think they're taking this in right now. I'm saying that if they're planning on doing another one together, the later issues revealed in the film could be of substance.
Well, that's a good sign if they got stuff for a sequel.
Yeah, maybe. Because again, I don't want to give away too much. For the first 3/4 of the movie, I think that it's going to end with either him making this movie and starting to sell it, or it failing, or something like that. You think it's about the movie, right? And you think it's about his relationship with his wife, and like how their strong connection and all these side characters that come together to make this guy's dream come true. That's what you think it's about. And then 3/4 of the way through, I really can't say without giving it all away, but he finds things, he has other priorities of sorts that are actually quite uncomfortable to watch at some points, but ones that needed to be in it, to show how his character is almost kind of degraded and dilapidated by the end.
Well, see, now I'm interested.
Yeah, so see, it's funny because at the end of it, I say in the review, I wasn't totally into it. I wish it was shorter. It wasn't my favorite thing. That's personal opinion. But a day later, I'm still thinking about how someone like that could lie to the people he loves for so long. So I'm still thinking about his character. So I guess that they did uncover a unique story, They did something right. And that might just be my personal preference. So people should watch it and make their own judgment.
Well, I guess just a little slow to execute.
Yeah, I think it was a little dragged out. And at first, to be honest, I actually thought that they were just exploiting this oddball character. Like, as filmmakers, as someone who makes films myself and has done documentaries in RTA, I was thinking that they just sort of found a story of someone and were just exploiting his oddities and the oddities of the rest of the characters. But then I found that, and I don't think they were trying to do that by the end. So, yeah.
Do you know how the makers of this film found this guy?
He had been covered in news articles and stuff.
Ah.
Because of what he was doing in Halifax. So that's how they originally got in touch with him and made it happen eventually. But, yeah, that's it.
Alright, well, thank you very much, Bailey. That's all the time we have left for this edition of the CanCulture podcast. I'm Zack Pothier. You can follow me on Twitter at @TheDailyZack, and be sure to read all of our articles on CanCulture.com. Thanks for listening. Good day.